Jerry.
All right, here we go. We are live. Trevor is like doing groceries right now. This is a crazy show to begin with, as I am.
Oh, look at that! Oh, he's eating. We eating good.
Kill, where's this from?
Is that from the barbecue place in town?
It's from Porky's, baby.
Oh wow!
It's their day. It's their day-old chicken.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
Southern
Barbecue stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. Why? Yes, of course. All right, we are here on the precipice of the college football selection show, which I will say, CBS does their selection show way better, 1,000 times better. ESPN only cares about hearing themselves talk for an hour before we get to it, and then in between every selection, they're like talking for 30 seconds. Just give us a show here. You ruin it. This is why people don't watch ESPN anymore, and this is why you're a failing network, I will say. So we start out. All right, so let me try to find the rankings. ESPN's app is yet to be updated. So Indiana's 1.
Yes.
Ohio State is 2.
Yes.
Here it is. Georgia's 3. Texas Tech is 4. They all have bye games or bye weeks, which I don't know if you want to buy in college, so that will be interesting to see what happens with that. If we look here, 5 is Oregon. 6 is Ole Miss, not dinged at all for still not having their coach. Texas A&M is 7, Oklahoma 8, Miami 9, or Alabama 9, Miami 10, Tulane is 11, and James Madison is 12. I will say I was kind of shocked they didn't move Ohio State down to begin with, but I respect hey, it's a 3-point game. If Ohio State's kicker isn't doing trick shots and actually learns how to make an actual kick, that game goes into overtime. So that's fine. The one where I start is the Alabama at 9. You move Notre Dame you move them over Notre Dame Tuesday for the dumbest reason I've ever seen, because a 5-7 Auburn team is supposedly like the greatest team of all time. So they won on a 4th down play to win the game against a 5-7 team, must I say. So then they get into the SC championship game, and then they get housed. They didn't even have 100 yards at the start of the 4th quarter of total offense. They had -3 rushing yards. They're terrible when you look at them play the last couple of weeks. And then you say, all right, we're not going to move them at all. I think that's a joke. And then it became my argument that I had Wednesday, and actually blew up on Instagram, which I was happy to see, was the BYU argument of why would you move BYU down and not move Alabama down? Well, guess what they did? They moved BYU down and then put Notre Dame and Miami next to each other. And I said Wednesday, if they did that, it'd be the most cowardless thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was. It's the biggest cop-out I've ever seen. It's the grossest thing I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying as a Notre Dame fan. I respect the head-to-head with Miami. I got no problem with that. Miami beat us. Whatever. I hope Miami goes on a run and they win the whole goddamn thing. That's where I'm at with it. My problem is you do it the last day of the year. And all year you believe Notre Dame was a better team until now, which is a joke. And now you kick BYU down and you say, you know what you did didn't matter. Your 2 losses are better than Alabama's 3 losses. Losing twice to BYU or to Texas Tech. Did they get blown out? Yes, but you lost to the number 4 team in the country twice. Alabama lost to a team in Florida State that's not even in a bowl game. So then your argument for, first week of the year mattered for Notre Dame, but it doesn't matter for Alabama. Joke. Like, they contradict themselves, and that's my problem with this whole thing. Is we sit up here and and Joey Galloway, I'll give it to him before I walked upstairs here to do this. He was like, him and Booger were going at it. He's like, this is now jump Miami is the biggest joke ever over Notre Dame. And Booger's like, yeah, but they're in. It's like, you can't do it the last day there. This committee's a joke. Everything, it just doesn't make any sense. We need to figure out a new way. And I don't know what it is, but to not, I think I'm more irritated they didn't move Alabama at all. And not that Notre Dame's not in. Like, I respect, I told you guys 2 weeks ago Notre Dame wasn't going to get it. It was 3 weeks ago. I knew it was going to happen. It's fine. We lost, whatever. Tyler Buckner doesn't, he catches a fucking snap. We tie it against Texas A&M. We go to overtime. Miami beat us straight up. That's fine. But to sit there and act like Alabama's still Alabama is a fucking joke. They're terrible, and they play Oklahoma. I hope Oklahoma beats them by 70.
No, the worst part is, honestly, that Alabama-Oklahoma matchup is really good for Alabama in terms of all the chaos that could happen. They're not a good running team, and they have a good offense in return for the most part. Did not show it against Georgia, obviously, but this year that's been kind of the thing. But no, the problem is now, like, when we have these kind of controversies every year to some degree, you're going to have this, but we're arguing the 12th or 13th team, right? At least we're not arguing the 4. That's kind of like point one. But then it's like, well, we need to change how we do this and that. There will be no accountability until there's some like stability, right? So this is year 2 of the 12-team bracket with people having 5 conference rank champions, all this and that. If they move this to 16 next year, we're just going to have the same argument, just 17, 18, 19. It was weird in my mind for Miami to just jump Notre Dame over a time period. It's just, I think a lot of the bracket comes down to like the vibes. And it sounds weird, but like you could use all the arguments, but it was like, Miami's vibes 4 weeks ago weren't good, I guess, right? Like they only had 1 to 2 losses. They still beat Notre Dame week 1. But I was like, I don't know. Like they're kind of weird, like we don't know if they're good, but then they kept winning. So I was like, oh, the vibes are better. Like I guess their numbers are too. And like they have a fair argument. I think Miami being in over Notre Dame makes sense. I don't have a problem with it. The Bama one's tough because, yeah, you've set 2 precedents at the same time of you play in a conference championship and you lose, you don't get dinged. Well, the Mormons would like to talk, right? The Cougars would like to have a say in this. But also the vibes around BYU are like, oh, yeah, you had a great regular season, but they've played, a real competition in Texas Tech, and they've gotten their butts whooped. So it's like, it doesn't always make sense. I'm not going to act like it's made sense since we've started here. But on the positive side, for me personally, very happy to see 2 G5 teams in here. That is fun. I'm going to enjoy the good things along with the bad. Because there are a lot of real arguments and real concerns. And like, if you wanted to be a purist, I get it. You can argue Tulane and JMU are not the 11th to 12th best team in the country. Sure. I think that's fair. But the hard part with the sport every year is determining both merit of what you've done throughout your year, who you've played and how you've played in those games in comparison to how good you actually are, right? Because you can put James Madison against Notre Dame or BYU probably on a neutral field. I'd tell you to bet BYU, right? And BYU be favored. Same thing with Notre Dame. But then you have these conference champions that take 5 spots. You have 2 bid stealers, right? The ACC did not help in this scenario here because Virginia would have been in too. Their own chaos. You want to save a spot for everyone? Let Miami win and get in their conference championship like the Mountain West did. Is that fair though? Who knows? But a lot of today's problems are long-term symptoms of the sport. Conferences being too big. Weird scheduling because of that, right? Like we've talked about Indiana and Ohio State not having tons of crazy competition throughout the year. A couple big games, that's it. And then they turn around and they have their one big game, right? What happens if Ohio State's a 2-loss team because they had to play Oregon, right? Or something like that. A lot of these teams within their own conferences did not have as many games to play one another. That does not help this scenario because it does not give you fair data points. But when you have 16-team conferences, stuff like this happens, and you can have a good year to take advantage of your schedule and go undefeated. I look at you, Indiana. And kudos to Indiana. They've done everything right this year. But you get a couple weeks every year to prepare for your big games, right? You could prepare for your Oregon. You could prepare for your Penn State, all this and that. Then return beat up on like a Rutgers. But that's not their fault. I can't blame Indiana for that. But that's kind of what a lot of these problems come back to this, to these bigger issues. They just play off in the 12-team bracket. And then someone gets left out, and then they do it in the weird ways, kind of like the Miami Notre Dame thing. To me, makes sense. It's just very weird.
Real quickly before we get to Trevor here, I don't even know who this is. FESPN and SC with their annual D ride for the SEC. Caleb, bro, how are you not ranting? I did do a little rant.
You ranted.
I did do a little rant. I'll stay in here. F Bama and the committee. Yeah. So here, Trevor, before you talk, because this is a question I had downstairs for the guys we were watching with. If Virginia wins last night, does Miami get in? Because do they then look at it and say we have to? It's like definitively, it would be 11-2 Virginia. They won the ACC. Miami didn't, and so like even though Duke won the ACC, I feel like in that room they're like Miami's still the better ACC team. But if Virginia would have won, that's my thing is like how that would have played out. That's just a question I have. It's like, because were they going to leave the ACC out? Probably not. I mean, if Virginia wins, they can't. But it's just a weird thing. That was just a question I had. But Trevor, you can go.
Well, so the only reason Miami is in the college football playoffs is because they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That is the only reason they're in. There's a few things. I think one, I think JMU and Tulane shouldn't be in the college football playoff. I understand what they've done, and it's very impressive. And like Jerry said, you cannot tell me that JMU can play competitively against some of these teams. It's just I understand what they've done. That should go towards their argument for being in the college football playoff. They should not be in the college football playoff. They are not part of the top 12 teams of the league. Number two, I do think that the playoff should be expanded to 16 teams because instead of – I was listening to the end of the Duke and Virginia game, and the guys brought up a good point. It's like Notre Dame could there's a plausible world where they win a national championship this season, and they're not in the college football playoff.
Can't happen now.
And same thing with like they were talking about Miami. Like it is plausible that they could win a national championship, and they may not be in the playoff. So I think if we expanded to 16 teams, we go to arguing who's in at 16. It would be some 3-loss team that has had some really bad moments, right? That we can kind of argue if they should be in there. But the people who are realistically probably going to be competitive in the playoff will be in there. Notre Dame will be in there. BYU will be in there. All these teams that we are talking about that should be in there would be in there if we had 16 teams in the college football playoff. Two, as a new Notre Dame fan, this is why not being in a conference is pretty frustrating to me. We already basically play in the ACC schedule. If they would, I know it's historical, I know all that stuff. If you just put us in the ACC, we could play a conference championship and have a say at the end of the year. I understand it's historic. I know that's like almost like I don't know what the term is.
Sacrilegious.
Yeah, sacrilegious, exactly. But with Notre Dame going out against Stanford, beating them by 50 or 40 or however much they beat them, and then being like, well, that's all we can do. That sucks. That really sucks. Yeah. Now, if we could go and we could play a Virginia or play a Duke or play a Miami in a conference championship and go, no, look, this is if Notre Dame was in the ACC championship and Miami wasn't, it's an obvious, you know what I mean? We'd have one loss in the ACC.
Yeah.
So,
I think the other thing to that is, this argument helps Notre Dame with not being in a conference is Miami didn't even get to their ACC championship game. So they didn't play either. And then you jump them at the end of the day. So I think that's what's kind of my other problem.
My argument is that if Notre Dame was they would be able to defend that from happening.
Yeah, no, you'd get the automatic bid. But like that's my argument with Miami. It's like you're supposed to be the best ACC team, yet you didn't make your conference championship game. You lost to two decent teams, one at home, one on the road in overtime. You didn't win when you were supposed to. You know, it's just the whole thing is just. It's a joke. I mean, this whole thing is just – it just doesn't make any sense. If Ben is downstairs, they're all watching me, I guess, downstairs. This is great. No, it just – I just cannot – like I said, I respect the head-to-head thing. I get that. I have no problem with that. You should have done it Tuesday. You waited till the last day. I don't care to hear what the backup chairman has to say about this thing because the first guy got fired from his job at TCU, and then he gets – fired from the committee, and now Arkansas's guy comes in or whatever and runs the committee. The problem, and I'm not saying Alabama should have been out. Alabama should have been moved to 10. And I understand them having to keep Alabama in it because if you take Alabama out, then the SEC is going to succeed from the Union, something the South's good at, and they're going to create their own thing. It's exactly what would have happened. Greg Sankey would be like, this is ridiculous. The team that was the number 1 seed going in the SEC championship game, you don't have them in at all. I'm not saying not have them in. Move them to 10. Put them back where they belong. Clearly 10 is where they belonged after watching them against Georgia. And then, that was my thing, is then the argument between Notre Dame and Alabama is if you think Notre Dame's a better team in Miami, which I think they did, they just got scared with the head-to-head thing. And my argument for that the history of college football, head-to-head really hasn't mattered. 93 with Notre Dame. We beat Florida State. Florida State ends up going to the national title game. Notre Dame doesn't. I think in 16, Penn State beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State made the playoff and Penn State didn't. So don't sit here and tell me head-to-head matters when historically in college football, it doesn't matter. It just the hypocrisy between these guys that sit in that room and talk, and Heather Dinich being like they were up till like 2 a.m, blah, 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 blah. That's a joke. They know who the best teams are. They got scared, and they did the head-to-head, and we can't move Alabama because the SEC will leave us, and we don't want that. And the whole thing needs to be blown up at this point. It's a joke.
Well, the thing I worry about is, like, again, the more things change, the more we'll just have the same conversations of how this doesn't make sense. You don't have data points in this 12-team playoff. We have 1 year of it, and we don't have to make sense of it, right? If we did all of our, if we based everything off of the last year of the playoff, having a bye is terrible for you. And conference championships don't matter. Like, there's so many things you could take away, and this is year 2 of this. And if we go to 16, which is the definite possibility, we will have the same argument at 17. And I get it. This year it works. Other years it doesn't. It's an imperfect process, but the problem is it's 12 teams, not 64, right? Yeah. When we're talking about like basketball and stuff like this, right? Like, here's a team that can make a great case that I don't think got a lot of attention. What do you do about Vanderbilt right now? The team that was not even in the last 2 out, right? It was 10-2 in the SEC. The only loss is to Bama, who's in your playoff, and Texas, who's the highest ranked number 3 loss team. They've beaten multiple other ranked teams, and they've won a cross-conference opponent in Virginia Tech. Right? Like, they have a good resume. They didn't even get a sniff, right? They're a 10-2 team. Yeah. Texas tried to make the case of like, we will never play anybody hard again in the non-conference, which they can't do. Which they can't do anyways. They're going to 9 SEC games and then having to play a tough or a good non-conference opponent. That's the new SEC scheduling that's coming out at some point. So, like, that's never going to happen. But, like, I think the tough point, the thing that has been hard for me to comprehend is, like, at a certain point, why didn't you just, like, I keep going back to the Miami thing. The Alabama stuff is annoying. I don't have a good answer for it. As somebody who's watched that Alabama team, their vibes are bad. But you know whose vibes are also really bad? Oklahoma's.
Yeah.
But they won.
Like,
they look terrible too. But the hard part about the college football playoff, just in general, you can do 16 teams, 20 teams, 4 teams, 2 teams. I don't care. Is, again, you have 133 teams here or whatever. You have 12 data points at max, and you're trying to figure out what teams have earned it versus what teams are the best at the sport. Notre Dame looks like a better team. They've won 10 straight, right? And when they needed to, for a lot of times, they put up style points. And that's something they needed to do to show that they're not just a good team, they're a great team, right? It is putting up 30 plus more on Stanford when you knew you were going to win that game. It is beating up on Pitt, right? But at the same token, it's like, why did you have them up so high when Miami and Notre Dame's rankings were very similar? And it's not like I think Miami was close. They had 2 losses first. Or no, they didn't. I lied there. It was Notre Dame because they went over 2. So it's like, okay.
They lost in the middle and not at the beginning.
Like, that's kind of my confusion point. It has been that. I don't, and I think the hard part about this year's playoff specifically is you can use the argument for why one team got in for another reason why one team was not in. And that's making this really hard to process. I go back to Bama BYU, right? You can't ding a conference championship opponent. There's
kind of, you were talking about that, Jerry, so I brought this comment.
There's a lot of, this is where you could use the logic of one team getting in here, and then you see that same logic being pushed against another team in multiple cases, right? That's my Vanderbilt argument. Why is Vanderbilt not even getting a sniff? Right? That's confusing to me in some degree. Why is Bama not getting dinged for looking bad in a conference championship game? I get it. It's the extra game. And now, listen, it's not supposed to hurt you. Last year, it didn't hurt SMU and Clemson, right? They both made it. But then you turn around, you give me a BYU team that's only lost to your number 4 team and lost to them twice badly, right? But like they didn't have to play that game, right? So it's like that's the hard part I think about this year's playoffs is just what the hell do you do when you put the argument forth for one team and you're like, this is why we did it. Then you could go to a prime example of another team and say, well, what happened with them? So that's a kind of the tough point. The other question mark I have, I'm glad they didn't get dinged just because it would suck, but I understand why they probably would have been Ole Miss. And like this is a perfect example. That's something the committee's 10 toes down on. They're like, if Lane Kiffin leaves, but after this game, we don't have a data point without them, so that's fine. They stood 10 toes down on that, and they moved on other things. So it's just very weird and very shifting and very confusing. But yes, the playoff will probably expand to 16 teams. We'll have the same argument at some point. But it's just, you could pick your argument for a lot of these different teams, and then you just use it to another team. You're like, huh? How do we get there?
No, it is confusing. All right, so these are I have the bowl assignments for the 1 through 4 teams, and then semifinals. So Indiana will play in the Rose Bowl. Being the 1 seed, they probably had the chance to pick what they wanted to as a Big Ten team, to go to the Rose Bowl. I don't blame them there. It's the best bowl game there is. Ohio State's going to the Cotton Bowl, Georgia to the Sugar, Texas Tech to the Orange Bowl. And then if in the semifinals, the winner, the 1 for whoever on that side will play in the Peach Bowl, and then the other side will be on the Fiesta Bowl. So that's how the bowl games kind of go into it. I mean, my other thing is if I'm Miami, I'm glad I'm in, but I'm pissed I'm behind Alabama. I just thought about that too. Now their road would include playing the 2 seed in Ohio State or whatever. I don't think it mattered at that point, but I don't know. It's just the craziness of like, we're going to ding BYU and knock them back to them to have Miami jump up and then not do anything with Alabama. It's just crazy to me how they did it and whatever. I mean, do what you want to do, but I don't know. I'm just kind of baffled at a couple of these things. Like I said,
I think the thing that kind of is frustrating, I understand that Alabama, we're talking about like a strength of schedule thing, and I realize that they played pretty well in a really strong schedule. But if we're going to knock BYU out, that kind of blows my mind because my biggest gripe with Alabama is not that they lost the SEC championship in such convincing fashion. It's that they lost to Florida State, and Florida State is terrible as of right now. Now, did we think that at the beginning of September? Not really. But, and this is my other argument, is that it's frustrating that a Notre Dame team can be knocked out of the playoffs in September. That's what you're telling us, basically, is that within the first 2 weeks of the season, Notre Dame was out of the college football playoff after losing to Texas A&M and Miami. They did everything they could. Now, I understand that other things have to go different ways and things like that, but to be able to say that, your season's just done in September and Miami can basically lose to 2 in-conference opponents and then not play in a championship, but still mosey into the playoffs, literally just because they beat you, is super stupid and annoying.
Well, I think the hard part is the Notre Dame specific problem is there's an argument that I think can be fairly made because you're an independent. They're one of the few schools that could do this, which it's like, if you're worried about this and maybe this goes into future scheduling, and I don't think Notre Dame, I'm going to be very clear, I don't think Notre Dame schedules that week. I'm not going to act like they never schedule hard opponents. Obviously, we're looking at Miami and A&M in the same, schedule this year. But they're one of the few teams that has the ability, outside of all their like rivalries, some that matter, some that don't really matter, to put on another 3rd or 4th really challenging game. This year it didn't fall as well, right? Last year, if you would have told me, oh, Notre Dame has Boise State, this is something that we talked about, or I've talked about it, with you guys in passing. Boise State, most years, that's a great game to have on your schedule. This year they're down. Yeah, they think they won the Mountain West, but like that's because the computers got in, and jingled around. Something that probably the ACC could have done. Now that we look back at all this, but like not BYU, Boise State wasn't as good this year. Your Pitt win was a pseudo-ranked game, and then Miami also did a better job against them. Right? There's other stats I think that help here in Miami's case, that makes sense. But like in the Notre Dame specific problem is like you ran into that second half of the schedule outside of your two big losses. And it's like, yeah, NC State wasn't that good this year. It's like in the same way that a lot of these teams I think have benefited from. Like we could talk about like the Indiana, Ohio States of the world, where I think they've had a lot of time to, in between weeks, just beat up on some teams. And the middle and bottom tier, and probably the Big Ten, at least in my mind, is not as strong as the middle to bottom tier of the SEC. Fine, whatever, who cares, right? But like that does also matter when it's like you have more time to prep for your bigger games and win your bigger games. And like that's a Notre Dame specific question, problem, and concern is like, you know, if your schedule that you have to make years in advance and you have the ability, but also the challenge of being an independent, if you fall into kind of that weird, not strong ACC opponents, right? They had some good ones, but not as a lot of great ones. You didn't run to a Clemson this year. You don't have a Duke win or a loss or a Virginia, which they could have next year or 2 years from now. It kind of screws you. So it's like the weird scheduling arrangement didn't help this year. It will help Notre Dame next year. And Notre Dame, to be very clear, I want this to be known. Swarbrick, yes. Jack Swarbrick was in the meetings here for how the 12-team college football playoff was made. I'm pretty sure Bavacqua is in the current
still
discussions.
Is. Yeah, no, it's basically him, the Big Ten commissioner, SC commissioner.
Yes.
Basically run it.
Like Notre Dame's in the room with these decisions, and Notre Dame came into this 12-team playoff when it was created, knowing they were never guaranteed a conference championship spot. And they said, we will take the risk and we'll never have a problem not being number 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? You know, or guaranteed in these buys, I should say, because they don't get the conference championship, to have all these at-large spots. They fought for this thinking that they would have this opportunity. This year, they got screwed. But this is something that Notre Dame specifically, in terms of like how this is built out, they fought for more of these spots, thinking they would have a better shot at getting in. This year, they just got screwed by it. Next year, it might benefit them, right? Like this is kind of the back and forth, but it's a Notre Dame specific problem. Like, yes, you're not in a conference, but you have a weird pseudo conference agreement that you kind of got the short end of the stick in terms of strength of schedule wise. And yeah, you started 0-2. It didn't mean that you were out completely. Things had to break a certain way, but I don't know. It's like, at least we're not overly complaining about like oh my God, we didn't play. They played this and it didn't matter, because that would have been such a more annoying argument long term.
Well,
really ugly.
I mean, if I'm Notre Dame right now, I get Michigan on the phone and I say, look, we're going to swap out one of these terrible ACC teams. We're going to play you next year. USC, we have to play regardless. We don't care. We'll play the first week of the year at this point to keep you guys on the schedule. Like, just open it up. Make it tough. I don't care at this point. I will say it was really funny. Ben pointed this out, actually, we were watching. They had a key win for Alabama being LSU, a 7-5 LSU, who fired their fucking coach. That's a fucking key win to you? What a joke. That's a joke. They fired their fucking coach the week before they played. That's a key win. Joke to me. All right, this is from Matt Freeman, who covers Notre Dame. If you know Matt, he does a great job doing it. He said Hunter Yurachek basically just said if BYU didn't get blown out in the Big 12 title game, then Notre Dame would have likely made the playoff. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Basically, the argument then is we moved Miami over BYU because they got blown out. Then what's your argument for Alabama? See, my gripe's not with Miami at this point. Like I said, I'm the biggest Hurricane fan ever. The U, throw it up. That 2000s team's the greatest team I've ever watched in my life. Most talent ever. I hope Third Leg Greg drops another album at this point and does what he does. Like I'm the biggest Hurricane guy there is right now. If Mario Cristobal needs me, I'll do anything. I may kill a man for him at this point.
Please don't admit that live on a podcast. I don't want to have to go to court for this.
But to sit there and have Alabama get blown out and not move them down at all, and then you're going to move – that's my problem. That is my problem. I stand with the Hurricane fans and I stand with the Mormons at this point. To the people in Alabama, I have nothing nice to say to you. I mean, that's just wrong. That the Bama great comments. Make his help was great again. That'd be wonderful. Appreciate it, Shaw. Yeah, no problem, Ben. It's a joke. BYU got blown out, so Notre Dame's on it. No. That's a cop out. That is the biggest cop out I've ever heard in my life. I didn't listen to it because I didn't want to hear it, but I want and this is where ESPN irritates me. I wanted Reese Davis to ask Yurich, and he may have. Do you believe Notre Dame is the better team as of right now? But when it came down to the head-to-head, you had to put them in. That's the answer.
They're not gonna ask that question. Now this is where I can get on my own high horses about the ethics of media, et cetera. We're not going to do that. That's very boring. We'll put some people to sleep. But there's an absolute real. There's a lot of questions, I think, but like this year's problem was there's too many good 10-2 teams. That's
too many. Yes.
And so this year, the question was, there was a lot of different people that I think validly could have been in the Miami 11, 12 spot in this world. And you can have these arguments. Again, I go back to Vanderbilt. Why is Vanderbilt not even being talked about in all this discussion, right? BYU has a very fair point, and I think that they've gotten screwed over. If Bama gets pulled, then there's a real question of like, hey, was the SEC championship matter? And I don't think, and like honestly, the Big 12 should be asking that same damn question right now. Why the hell does our conference championship game matter? We gave our best team. They got a bye barely. In return, the second best team, who only lost to that team twice, was the second team out, not even the first team out. Like that's another thing too. So like we could go on this all day. I think we'd probably best to start moving into some of the matchups at some point because it doesn't make sense. It is not perfect. It's kind of both, and I don't want to be Mr. Positive, all this and that, but like that is kind of also the beauty of the sport is we have these stupid discussions. We get to have fun with this, but we knew this was going to come down at some point, right? Where there's going to be some stupid problematic thing that really ruins or jacks up a team season. This year it's Notre Dame. Last year the question was South Carolina or Alabama, right? These 3-win teams that had really good resumes, they got pushed out right at the end, right? So it just depends. Last year's argument was like, we do this, and that. This year it's like, well, does the conference championship matter? Oh, it does, but when does it matter? Like, and just to add on to it, this year's committee has been weird. They haven't made sense to me. Like this is, they kind of thrown teams in. Like the thing that I kind of kept an eye on was what does the back end of the playoff look like? Top 12 is whatever. It's messy. And obviously now we get to this point, it's like, okay, whatever. We're sitting here now. We're 30 minutes in talking about the same bracket, right? But how do those back end teams fare in to help bolster strength of schedule, strength of records? And that never made sense to me. Like Mizzou popped in for a week when they played Oklahoma. Pitt popped in there when they were playing Notre Dame.
Win for Alabama too. Joke.
Sorry, no, that's fine. Missouri didn't beat a ranked team this year.
That's what I'm saying. Every time they played, every time they played a ranked team, they lost, and that's a key win just because they're in the SEC.
That's where I was like, that's where you could start seeing a lot of this back end stuff. I like to see the back end of the top 25 right now. I don't know if it's been updated because that's a good question for me as we go long term because it's like, well, what's bolstering, some of these teams, et cetera. There's still a lot of, we won't get a lot of answers. Hunter Yurachek is not going to give it to you. Mind you, Ryan, Hunter Yurachek just hired a head coach at his school right now that half of his, staff and program hates, like in Silverfield. Like he's got a negative reaction to that. Now he has to go on TV and tell you why Notre Dame got screwed and why Alabama's great. This is this year's problem. And in 2 or 3 weeks, we will be previewing these games and still having a great time. Which I will say, I'm very excited for some of these matchups. I know we can keep going on all day about.
I have the odds for the first round, Jerry. If you want.
My eyeballs and maybe my eyeballs went to this game first. Tulane and Ole Miss. Yeah, I find that game fascinating. That's going to be hugely interesting. First of all, it's on TNT. That's weird. But in Oxford, a Tulane team that is good. I think that's just fair to say good, not great. Ole Miss has the team, but now the question will be, what does head coaching mean? And do you want to know something that will dude, I love that too. We'll talk about James Madison and Eugene in a bit, but you want to talk something that's going to break the sport if this were to happen? What if Ole Miss just goes on a run? I'm not saying they will. I'm not necessarily predicting that.
I think
you want to talk about something that would break the sport. The guy who was left, Lane Kiffin, right? He left for LSU to do all this, pick whatever, blah, 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 right? And Ole Miss goes on with Pete Golding, who's a solid coach. He's been the defensive coordinator. He's a long SEC guy. Don't look up his mugshot. Please do. It's actually funny. But has all this stuff going on. If Ole Miss goes on and, F's around and gets into the championship game and God forbid wins it, you want to see things reverberate quickly. That's going to take – the Lane stock's going to tank. It's not just a Lane Kiffin problem. It's going to be a college football coach problem where they're going to go, look at this. The DC stepped in the playoff and just won it, right? So I am completely fascinated in that game, also because Tulane could turn around and win it. I think that's a very winnable game, especially with all the chaos and confusion in Oxford. That's the one that my eyes glared to first when it came to actual matchups.
All right, so I have the lines for the first 4 games here. Do you guys want to guess them?
Yeah.
James Madison at Oregon.
Oregon minus 400.
Oregon 2 touchdown favorites. So 14.
20 and a half.
Oh, we're doing okay. I got it.
Old Miss versus Tulane at Old Miss.
8.5.
Let me say it's probably going to be a touchdown, but it should be less.
16 and a half.
Wow. I think that's not gambling advice, so let's make sure clear, but not gambling advice. I'm very curious in that game.
So money line on James Madison's plus 920. Money line on Tulane is 580. All right. Number 7, Texas A&M hosting number 10 Miami.
Give me a field goal. 3.5.
That's what I was thinking 3.
For who? Who's
Texas A&M.
Yep, A&M. Basically, what they're saying is neutral site, pick them. A&M's at home. Give them the thing. Give them the 3.5. So A&M is 3.5 point favorite. All right, Alabama at Oklahoma.
Can I bet on I won't want to watch it? That's it. That game sounds disgusting. It'll probably be like Oklahoma, like a field goal as well, because they'll say neutral site's about the same.
I would say Alabama 3.5.
Alabama's 2.5.
Yeah,
sure. I don't care.
I mean,
I feel like that line might move a bit too. I don't know.
It's just interesting. I was curious about Tulane and James Madison. Like, how big of underdogs would they be? Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not shocked Notre Dame didn't get in. I said that about a month ago that they wouldn't get in. Everybody said I was crazy. I'm majority right most of the time. I mean, this King of the North. Like, this is what I do. Voice of the North. I know everything. So I was right. We didn't beat Miami. I got no problem with that. Head-to-head, we'll probably be in the Pop-Tart Bowl. I'll love to see Marcus Freeman devour a life-size Pop-Tart. I watched Jeremiah Love play his last game at Stanford. CJ Carr's going to win the Heisman next year. We're going to hopefully get in the playoff and win the national title.
Well, I mean, that's the question going long-term next. Like, the immediate next question is now we have to start talking about the Heisman, right, at some point. Which I think is going to be really weird. I think even though Fernando Mendoza won that game and Indiana won that game, I don't think he really helped the Heisman case this week. And again, the funny one, still Diego.
I honestly I think he jumped up in the odds. I think he's like the leader in the clubhouse as of right now.
Who is Diego Pavia?
As of last night, he was. I don't know if that changed.
Jeremiah Love also, I think, should get more love with how back and forth and equal the Indiana-Ohio State game was. Because if you wanted a quarterback
he should be in New York.
He should. I think that, honestly, that game probably helped. Because one thing that could have definitely happened in this game is you had Heisman possibilities of both of Mendoza, who had played fine. They won. And I want to talk about that Indiana win. That's a fantastic moment. I want to celebrate this in a minute. But it's Ali Mendoza that blew the world off, right? Julian Sayin obviously was just fine. Jeremiah Smith was okay. Like, there's nobody from that game in a possible moment that you could add a Heisman moment, which is a little overblown. But like, you could have taken over and shown you're the best player in the sport. None of them did that. So I really do think that the Jeremiah Love odds peak up a little bit. And at least he should be now probably at least in New York. Because, again, in a prime moment for a lot of the candidates from both Ohio State and Indiana to do something, they didn't. It would be fun to see a Texas Tech linebacker, but he won't make it. But I do, in a weird shout-out and turn here, how cool is it that Indiana's number 1 in college football right now? How cool is it that Duke is a conference champion, right? Like, there is a lot to complain about. There's a lot of problems, and I will be the first to admit that. But in the midst of all this chaos, some really interesting and fun things are happening. Texas Tech, we talked about them in the preseason. Their team I was very high on. The goal for Texas Tech this year was to win a Big 12 title. They have not won the Big 12 in a long time, as we know, back in the 1950s. They have fought for years to be relevant within the state of Texas. Not that they're like irrelevant, but they're fighting a big battle. They've came out here. They spent their money well. They're a fun story. Don't read about the Score Act. That'll make this less fun. But, like, shout out to Texas Tech for having a fantastic season. They've gotten a well-earned bye. But, yeah, I go back to the Hoosiers. Dude, this is crazy. Like, I am so impressed by what Kirk Cignetti has done at Indiana these last 2 years. Last year to make the playoff, that's as crazy enough as it is. Just to talk about 1 year turnaround, and then the second year to be better. I think we had a lot of questions coming into the season about how do you kind of put year 2 together after the transfer overhaul they've done. And what I'm quickly learning about Cignetti is that he is one of those guys that you can't really replicate. He is, in my mind, almost Saban-esque. Obviously, doesn't have Saban's resume. He's not stayed at that place for a long time. But, they're going to start hiring people off Indiana staff at some point if this keeps going on. They're going to try to pick and pluck players from Indiana. And I don't know if it's going to replicate one-on-one. What has been done there, what has been done by the Hoosiers to realistically say they're the best team in the state, that's something I don't think that any Indiana fan you could have told not even 5 years ago, last year, say, hey, you're going to have the best team, college football team in your state, one that resides in Notre Dame, and no one will believe you. And now they're the number 1 team in football. That's awesome. There are some cool moments in this that I don't want to get lost in, like to necessarily lose. Like James Madison, they have lost their coach. We're talking about Cignetti. They are literally, they're going to lose Bob Chesney whenever their playoff runs. They get to go to Eugene. Their one loss, Louisville, highly ironic as we talk about losses. Louisville's played more of an interest in this playoffs than I think a lot of people are going to give it credit to. They get to go to Eugene. That's cool. That's fun. Again, we're talking about Tulane, John Summerall, going to go to Florida after this, but going to Ole Miss and Oxford, that's cool. There's a lot of fun moments that will be built out of this as everyone kind of gets calmer heads prevail. So I will enjoy those fun things in return to obviously talk about and try to answer our questions about the problems and concerns when it comes to this playoff system.
Yeah, like I said, it's just it's wacky, it's crazy. I think to sit up there and to penalize BYU for losing pretty much the same fashion Alabama did and then not dropping them at all, it's crazy. I just looked at a thing. Ohio State dropped, Bama didn't. BYU dropped, Bama didn't. So I mean, it is what it is. Whatever. All right.
Ooh, wait a minute. That's a good point. I never thought about that. Was Ohio State not supposed to drop?
So they dropped to 2, but
right? But they said the conference championship wouldn't matter. Yeah. Or no, they didn't. They said that last year, right? And they kind of flipped it this year.
Yeah. So that's the thing is that's the argument is everybody else who basically lost that was in the playoff in the conference championship dropped, but Alabama. So for some reason they are holding to Alabama. They act like Nick Saban is still on the sidelines. He's not. It's a guy in Kalen DeBoer who I don't understand sometimes. His facial expressions just watching the game was painful to watch. So I don't know. But here I have the Heisman odds here. So Mendoza is by far the favorite at like minus 2,000. Diego Pavia, then Jeremiah Love. Julian Sands basically dropped out. So it'll be interesting what happens. I appreciate you guys getting on to do this. I wanted to do it now while the iron was hot to strike it. So we'll see how the playoff plays out. I mean, this is what always happens. I mean, they let Alabama in 2 years ago over a Florida State team, and they ended up losing to Michigan. So time will tell. I will say, though, as I'm in Green Bay, bear down, Jerry. I'm up here defending the state of Chicago Bears football, which I'm just happy to be here at this point. That's why I'm with majority Packer fans. The house we're in is amazing. It's awesome. I will say Green Bay, it's fucking sweet. Like it is like everything you hear about it is just like, yeah, kind of the stadium's just kind of in the middle of nowhere. It is like, it is basically like if Notre Dame Stadium didn't have the campus around it and just walking towards the stadium, it's like exactly what it is. It's in the middle of the neighborhood. It's such like a small town feel. The restaurants have been good. The bars have been fun. It's awesome. I mean, it is a spectacle to see. We did the tour yesterday. Got to go on the field. It was sweet. I mean, I will say, I'm not a Packers fan. Now, these people are trying to turn me into one at this place. Not happening.
Don't you dare break.
I will never. I'm ride or die Bears. Blue and orange look better on me than green sometimes. On Sundays, at least, not on Saturdays. But yeah, I mean, so it's been fun. So I wanted to give you guys an update. It is fucking cold, so hopefully I don't freeze. But no, it's been a great time. If anybody can come up here and do it, I You have to do it. It's been fun, and hopefully the Bears get a win. But as I've said, I'm just along for the ride and
Yep.
playing with house money
Taking
at this
in the
point.
experience. Yep.
Just playing with house money. The fact that
That's
we're first
right.
place is baffling. This is just like kind of what we are. I'll get to the quick couple of comments. Ben says we should opt out of the bowl. No, we're going to play BYU in the Pop-Tart Bowl, and we're going to show them how it's done. The Catholics are going to destroy the Mormons. Have fun. Thank you. Just here for the ride. So that's where we're at. Alabama, I have nothing nice to say to you. I think it's a joke. An elephant as your mascot doesn't make much sense in the state of Ohio.
Doesn't.
Well, don't get started with it. But I will say, as we pop off here, we have a lot to go on still too.
We do.
Obviously, we're talking about 3 o'clock football game. Some small thing going on in Green
3
Bay.
o'clock, Jerry. I maybe Central Time's not as bad as I thought.
Caleb!
I tried to tell you, man.
It's
Sorry.
not as bad as I thought when we were downstairs last night during the Ohio State game, and it was like the game was like getting to the end of the fourth quarter. I'm like, this game being at like 10 o'clock for the end of the fourth quarter is not terrible.
Yeah, you start to see the vision, dog. Hey, man, I'm just putting it in there. Yeah, Central Time agenda whisper. But no, we have some good games going on here. I've been keeping up on the slate real quick for the NFL. That's been going on here. One day that I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. Colts Jags are tied at 7 here. That's always a weird game. I know we have some Colts fans here that really keep an eye on this. Bengals Bills is obviously a fantastic one that's going on right now. Bengals up 7-3 going into the second quarter. And then you have what I call my weekly, me and my buddy at work will decide what's the worst game of the NFL slate this week. We call it the Booty Bowl. Dolphins Jets is that decision this week. And right now the Dolphins are 14-0 against the Jets, which
Booty Bowl.
Because Trevor, I'm playing you in fantasy, and I have the Dolphins defense, so that's very nice. I'm very glad we have that. But yeah, no, we have some NFL. Personally, for us fellow Missourians, big one, border war going on in basketball. That's going on at the same time. So there's a chance I could have a really bad sports Sunday if this goes the way I think it does.
I mean,
but that's part of the fun here. We have a lot of still to go on, and then before you know it, after cooler heads prevail, we're going to be talking about these games, and then we still have coaching carousel stuff to get through. Man, it's a busy time, and Christmas shows up just out of nowhere.
I mean, that. You know, we always joke about like, hey, in July we had no idea what we're going to talk about. Now we're here. I will say,
Bill Belichick, what are you doing?
I will try. I will try an Uncle Mike's cookies. So the people I've gone with know this area very well. They took us around the steaks. Uncle Mike's Bakery. It's so funny sometimes to hear some of the people talk up here. It's just like, for me, it's like we're not that far away, and it's just so much different. But I will try an Uncle Mike's cookie. Everybody's been asking me to do this. This is peanut butter, I believe. Not bad. Kind of helps my sorrows a little bit. I'm going to be drinking a lot of beer today.
Spotted cow, better be.
Yeah.
And just living my best life at this point. I mean, Notre Dame's going to be in the Pop-Tart Bowls. I love Pop-Tarts.
Is that our next thing, Pop-Tart review?
No, I'm not going to go that far, but that's my prediction.
Well, honestly, if Notre Dame wins, you should get the Pop-Tarts. I think they make special Pop-Tarts whenever the team wins. That's definitely.
I will say, I met the guy from the Pop-Tart Bowl when I was at Dan Patrick. He was there in Notre Dame. I should have known we're going to get screwed and end up in the Pop-Tart Bowl. This was in October.
No, my Lord. I will. No, but the funniest outcome here is that Notre Dame goes
conspiracy, to Jerry. Conspiracy. You don't want to believe it.
Well, if the conspiracy, that's fine. If the conspiracy works that way, I don't care. As long as we get Missouri in the Mayo Bowl and I get to watch Eli Drinkwitz get doused in mayo.
That'd be hilarious.
I need
real? That
yes. No,
yeah,
it's awesome. My favorite thing was the first year they did it. They did it with Shane Beamer, and they dumped it, and they hit his head first. So it's like a gallon of mayo, and then dump. And then they did it, I think last year was Mike Loxley, if I remember. They gave one of the big hats. You know, like the super big ones that make no sense. Yeah. They dumped it on that. That wasn't as fun. I kind of wanted to especially because Drinkwitz wears a visor. Like, can you imagine getting mayo in the hair?
Oh my! I would tell my team to purposely lose the game.
I live for stupid things like this, like a Pop-Tart that basically sacrifices itself, like we're in the Aztec Empire.
There's more than one
after a win.
There's 6 Pop-Tarts this year.
Yeah, there's human sacrifice. Cheez-Its exist somewhere in this. And then the Bad Boy Motors Bowl, which is not that anymore. I don't know. A team goes to the Bahamas. We will also get those bowl assignments. I don't know if we will not.
We'll get them today.
I'm putting my foot down. We will not preview every bowl game.
We're not going to do all that. We may pick them, but we're not going to preview them. I don't even know what I don't even know what our picks are from this week.
No, dude. Well, and what is it? I probably should shout this out because as Kalamazoo's biggest hater, Western, congratulations on that MAC title. We do love that. I did not watch any of that game, to be fair. So if they lost and I just missed that, I apologize. But I'm
No, they won. They won.
So shout out to the Broncos beating up on Miami of Ohio.
Miami of Ohio's quarterback opted out of the game, so asterisks maybe. But yeah,
hey, I didn't put that out there. I want to be very clear.
As a guy that was born in Kalamazoo, I have every right to say that. So
as a Kalamazoo truther, I didn't even bring that one up. So
so I don't know. We'll see. A lot happened today. It is what it is. I respect the decision of the committee. I don't, but I will say I do. Yeah, we'll go from here. Me and Trevor will be back Wednesday.
Yep.
Jared will be back with us Sunday. We have a lot to break down. Slowly getting into this. Yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a ride. I knew as soon as I told everybody downstairs, as soon as Bama didn't move, I looked at everybody right before they were Miami, and I said, what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
And exactly. Yet again, it's like I know everything. Like this guy over here who's in Green Bay right now, someone may want to start I know. I see the future. I know everything. Someone better buy me up and lock me up somewhere because I know everything. But yeah, we'll be back Wednesday, back Sunday with Jerry. As always, thanks for watching.
Peace.